One senator has a change of heart, and suddenly Brett Kavanaugh's nomination to the U.S. Supreme Court is on hold. Plus, hundreds of dead after an earthquake triggers a tsunami in Indonesia. And the U.S. pulls non-essential staff from a consulate in Iraq. The decision prompted by security threats from Iran. Hello, I'm Lynda Kinkade. CNN Newsroom starts right now. The confirmation process of U.S. Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh has been turned on its head once again. Republican senators and the White House have now agreed to delay the final Senate vote to confirm Judge Kavanaugh by a week so that the FBI can investigate sexual assault allegations against him. It comes after they spent days ruling out such an investigation. And it all came down to one man, Republican Senator Jeff Flake. He's seen there one of three swing voters from the Republican side that are needed to confirm Kavanaugh. Now, he had a last-minute change of heart. Friday morning, he'd let it be known he'd made up his mind and that he'd vote in favor of Judge Kavanaugh with his fellow Republicans. But just a few hours later, he called for an FBI investigation. So what changed his mind? We don't know for sure, but this might have something to do with it.
Look at me when I'm talking to you. You're telling me that my assault doesn't matter, that what happened to me doesn't matter, and that you're going to let people who do these things into power.
What you are doing is allowing someone who actually violated a woman to sit in the Supreme Court. This is not tolerable. You have children in your family. Think about them. I have 2 children. I cannot imagine that for the next 50 years, they will have to have someone in the Supreme Court who has been accused of violating a young girl. What are you doing, sir?
Well, those 2 women say they are survivors of sexual assault. But Flake wouldn't tell reporters whether or not their powerful remarks ultimately changed his mind. But he is adamant on the need for an FBI investigation of Kavanaugh.
I can only say that I would be only comfortable moving forward on the floor. I'll move it out of committee, but I will only be comfortable moving on the floor until the FBI has done more investigation than they have already. It may not take them a week. I understand that some of these witnesses may not want to discuss anything further, but I think we owe them due diligence.
Well, in a statement Friday, Kavanaugh said he would continue to cooperate with the FBI, and an attorney for Christine Blasey Ford, Kavanaugh's accuser, welcomed the new investigation, but said it should not be subject to artificial time limits. Well, one of the women we just saw confronting Senator Flake later came on CNN to explain what she was thinking.
Honestly, I had literally just read the headlines of his statement, and we saw him running to the elevator and we ran behind him. It was a very kind of intense moment of really wanting to talk to him. I was not really prepared even for my own emotions, but I felt like he really needed to hear. Like, he needed to understand that women feel incredibly enraged about the thought of our stories, of our experiences of surviving sexual violence being dismissed, laughed at, disbelieved. And I think I just felt a great sense of urgency. And I think I saw in his face that he could not escape the emotion.
Well, our Ryan Nobles joins us now from the White House. And Ryan, a lot can happen in politics in a week, but is a week enough for an FBI investigation into an allegation that is decades old?
Probably not, Linda. It seems to be the opinion of many here in Washington that this is essentially just delaying the inevitable, and at some point, these Republican senators and the Democratic senators from red states where President Trump won in 2016 are going to have to make this tough choice, a tough choice between who they believe, either Brett Kavanaugh or Christine Blasey Ford, who's making this accusation against him. And this was something that Mitch McConnell specifically told Jeff Flake, the senator from Arizona, when he told McConnell that he was not going to vote yes unless they gave the FBI an opportunity to take a second look at this, that you're simply not going to get the resolution and the confirmation that you're looking for, that there are just too many unknowns in this situation, and it's never going to be the clarity that you're looking for. So it's going to be a tense week here in Washington. And to your point, Lynda, a week is an eternity in politics. And I think that's what has Republicans the most nervous, is that the longer you delay this process, the more opportunities you provide for pitfalls to come up in the final vote. And that's why Democrats still feel that they've got a good chance of toppling this nomination.
Yeah, it must certainly also make Kavanaugh nervous. It was interesting to note President Trump came out describing the accuser of credible. But late last night took to Twitter and took a completely different tone, ignoring her testimony.
Yeah, and that's kind of been the delicate balance that you've seen Republicans take across the board. You know, what's really interesting, Lynda, is that I've not found one Republican of note who has actually called Dr. Ford a liar or suggested that her story isn't true. And that seems to be the difficult position they find themselves in, is that they want to give her the credibility, they want to give her the opportunity to tell her story, but at the same time, they also want to believe Brett Kavanaugh. And there becomes a kind of a sticking point here where you've got to pick a side and decide which story you believe more, especially if you want this man to sit on the highest court in the land for a lifetime appointment. So that's where Republicans are right now, and how they deliberate over this process over the next week will be a really important decision-making process. And keep in mind, Lynda, it's against the backdrop of a highly contested midterm election here in the United States, where Democrats have the feeling that they're going to be able to seize at least control of one house in the United States Congress, and perhaps both. So it comes at a time where political tensions are at an all-time high, and frankly, there just isn't anyone that could come out of this ahead.
Absolutely. All right, Ryan Nobles, good to have you with us from the White House. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Lynda.
Well, Julian Zelizer is a CNN political analyst and professor and historian at Princeton University, and joins me now from New York. Julian, I have to wonder what can really be achieved in an investigation that is limited in time by a week and limited in scope. Has this pushing back of the votes simply, is it a way for Republicans to try and take the heat out of the situation, given the emotional outpouring that we've seen the last few days?
I think there's a way to look at this as giving Republicans and even maybe red state Democrats a little bit of cover, meaning they can say they had the investigation after hearing her. It didn't produce enough evidence, we might hear next week, to have them vote no. And then they can vote for the confirmation and say that they were responding. So I think we need to be careful in thinking through how this might be used. It's not clear the investigation on its own, without hearings about what is found, will really produce much to stop this.
I want to play some sound from Kavanaugh from the hearing, from early at the start of the hearing and what we've heard recently, just for our viewers. Let's just take a listen.
The Supreme Court must never, never be viewed as a partisan institution. The justices on the Supreme Court do not sit on opposite sides of an aisle. They do not caucus in separate rooms. If confirmed to the Supreme Court, I would be part of a team of 9, committed to deciding cases according to the Constitution and laws of the United States. The behavior of several of the Democratic members of this committee at my hearing a few weeks ago was an embarrassment. This whole 2-week effort has been a calculated and orchestrated political hit, fueled with apparent pent-up anger about President Trump and the 2016 election, fear that has been unfairly stoked about my judicial record, revenge on behalf of the Clintons, and millions of dollars in money from outside left-wing opposition groups.
So he certainly sounded like, at the set out of this at the start, that he was seeking to be a very independent member of the Supreme Court. But as this has dragged on and as he has found himself facing very serious accusations, he doesn't sound like someone that would be completely independent of politics on the highest court in the land.
He certainly doesn't. Judicial temperament went out the window the other day, and there's an argument to be made, and some Democrats have tried to make this, that regardless of what the FBI can or cannot find right now, his performance at those hearings suggested that he isn't fit to be on the court. Many people will see his appointment, if it goes through, as the appointment of a very partisan figure at this time. Given what he said about the Democrats and about what this investigation is about, he came out on the side of red against blue rather than as a justice above politics. And